There we are. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 22nd meeting of the Olentangy Local School District Board of Education. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Lester?
Here.
Dr. Dabrico?
Here.
Dr. Wallach?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Ms. Schreiber?
Here.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, okay. I saw them pointing that way, so I turned.
That wasn't in our notes.
Yeah. All right. I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda. All right. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right. Hearing none, Mr. Jenkins?
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes. All right, Board President's Report. First of all, I'm going to apologize for the glare that is coming straight off of this. I can feel it. So, well, thank you all. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. These are always some of our favorite board meetings where we get to welcome people from the community to recognize our wonderful students and staff members. And it's just really a true joy to have you all here. We will get moving with that here in just a couple minutes after the Board President's Report. I always tell people this, you are more than welcome to stay for the entire board meeting. Very, very rarely does anyone take us up on that offer, but you are more than welcome to stay. We have some really interesting stuff on the agenda. I'm guessing since that a lot of you will not stay for that, so I just wanted to hit a couple of important points that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I really want to encourage everybody to over the next couple of months, the year, really be taking a look at our board updates because as hopefully you all are aware, we passed a bond issue last fall that allows us to build a new high school and elementary school. We're going to be having some construction updates and redistricting updates that are going to be coming out over the next year or so. We also have a lot of financial updates and legislative updates that are really important, right? There's a lot going on with school funding. It's a continuing conversation as we're working through the bond issue. We are really upfront with people that funding is going to be, continue to be an issue that we're going to have to be addressing here over the next coming years. So tonight we have our first reading of the financial forecast that Mr. Jenkins will present. If you check the meeting minutes, you'll be able to see that presentation. You'll also be able to see the what we call the PAF, or the Popular Annual Financial Report. This will ultimately be mailed out to everybody in the community, but it has some really, really good information, very in-depth about the state of our financial situation, what the costs are that the community faces, some of the achievements that the district has in the face of all that. It's really, really informative. And we always encourage people, I feel like I'm getting louder. We always encourage people to take a really close look at that and ask questions. This is some really, really complicated stuff, but we try to make it as clear as we possibly can for folks. So please do take a look at that. I do want to remind everyone, Mr. Meyer will cover this in his presentation, but we do have our State of the Schools event coming up on February 4th, so we'll have some more notification about that. That's always a great event as well, where we get to talk about all the wonderful things that are happening here and what's coming in the years ahead. We're also going to have a lot of facilities updates as we're continuing this construction process. So a lot of information is going to be coming out over the course of the next year. Really, please do check your email, take a look at it, and reach out to us with any questions. In terms of committee updates, last night, Dr. Wallach and I were at the Mental Health and Wellbeing Committee. That's a committee where we really look at the mental health and well-being services that are being offered and examine that. One of the things we talked about last night was we are obligated by law to provide signs of suicide training for 6th grade on, and the curriculum itself changes a little bit as we go on. Families are allowed to opt out of that if they don't want that to be provided, and we provide information. But there's something else that we include there, which is a free depression screener that families can opt into if they want to do that. What we found is that not a lot of people are doing that. And so we talked about why that is and what some of the barriers to that are, because it can allow for targeted services if people need that. So, we talked about how we're going to move forward with some of those things and work with members of the community to get a little bit more information. Have any other committees met? I don't, facilities, is that?
So not facilities, just wanted to give a Career Center update.
Yeah.
The Career Center is also experiencing incredible growth. They shared a number with us last week at the meeting that is heartbreaking, that hundreds of kids are on the waiting list for programs at the Career Center, and that's not what we want to happen. They're looking at different expansion possibilities. So stay tuned. There's one underway now, but more as the demand grows for different programs at the Career Center. It's a great community resource. It's not just for students of Delaware County. It's also for the entire community, different ages of folks. Even old folks like me have things that we can be doing over there. So stay tuned.
That's great. And then, do we have any OSBA updates since the last one?
No updates.
Okay, good. So we will then move forward to our recognition part. So Dr. Wallach will be reading names, and we'll welcome people to come up. I do just want to say, in a week where we've already had a school cancellation, and in a week where there's going to be maybe some more, depending on what we see, Mr. Meyer becomes really, really popular. So please no lobbying of him, suggesting what you'd like to see there so we can keep it moving. But with that, we'll have Dr. Wallach.
Tonight's meeting is a special celebration, as the board has the privilege of recognizing students and staff members for their outstanding achievements in co-curricular, extracurricular, and athletic activities. This evening, we are thrilled to honor the remarkable accomplishments of our students, coaches, directors, and advisors. As your name is announced, please join us on stage for a photograph with Board President Brandon Lester and Superintendent Todd Meyer. These photos will be mailed to your home in the coming weeks as a keepsake of this special recognition. At this time, we'd like to recognize our phenomenal student athletes, teams, and coaches. This year, many of our students, teams, and coaches earned individual and team honors at the state level throughout their dedication, discipline, and commitment to excellence. The board proudly congratulates the following students. From Olentangy Berlin High School, Soleil Cordell, 2025 OHSAA State Girls Tennis Champion. Cadence Schoolsby, 2025 All-Ohio Girls Volleyball. Coach Michael Kalin, 2025 District Champions Girls Soccer. Miles King, 2025 OHSAA State Track and Field 300-meter hurdles runner-up. Coach Justin Lehman, 2025 OHSAA Division I Spirit State Champions, District Champions cheerleading as well. Coach Michelle Mimna, 2025 District Champions Girls Volleyball. Coach Mark Norrie, 2025 OCC Cardinal Champions Football and OCC Cardinal Coach of the Year. Coach Michael Weaver, 2025 OCC Cardinal Champions Baseball. From Olentangy High School, Coach Micah Conley, 2025 OHSAA State Championship Golf, 3rd place, District Champions. Jacob Lindley, 2025 OHSAA State Track and Field, 4th place in the 4x400 relay and first team All-State. Jay Tucker, 2025 OHSAA State Track and Field, 4th place in the 4x400 relay and first team All-State. From Olentangy Liberty High School, Elena Aldrink, 2025 OHSAA State Cross Country Championship, 1st place. Coach Chris Allen, 2025 District Champions Girls Soccer. Ben Goldagger, 2025 All-State OCC Central Player of the Year, Boys Soccer. From Olentangy Orange High School, Amelia Butner, 2025 OCC Player of the Year, Girls Golf. Brooke Chapman, 2025 OHSAA State Runner-Up, Girls Cross Country, All-Region Girls Cross Country, and this past spring, the 2025 OHSAA State Track and Field 1600-meter champion. Levi Davis, 2025 First Team OCC Offensive Player of the Year, Division I Ohio Offensive Player of the Year, First Team All-Ohio, Football, and Spring 2025 State Track and Field 7th place. No? Yes. Wait. Okay. Coach Antonio Diaz, 2025 Regional Runner-Up and District Champions Boys Soccer. Coach Katie Dewey, 2025 Girls Volleyball Regional Champions, District Champions, OCC Champions, Girls Volleyball, and Coach of the Year, OCC Central District, and OHSVCA. Nicholas Harubin, 2025 OHSAA State Track and Field, 8th place, 400-meter dash. Coach Todd Heeline, 2025 OCC Champions Girls Golf and OCC Central Coach of the Year and Columbus Dispatch OCC Coach of the Year. We would be remiss to not acknowledge our 2 state championship teams, the undefeated 15-0 championship football team from Olentangy Orange High School, and again, the Olentangy Berlin Cheerleaders with their 2nd straight state championship in competitive cheer. To our athletes and coaches tonight, we celebrate not only the victories and records achieved, but the dedication, discipline, and teamwork that made them possible. Congratulations on your outstanding accomplishments, and thank you for representing excellence on and off the field. In the area of performance, the board would like to celebrate the passion, discipline, and creativity of our district students and ensembles. Congratulations to the following for their excellence in the visual and performing arts. From Olentangy High School, Ian Brunner, 2025 OMEA State Marching Band Finals, Superior Rating. Thank you for representing them, gentlemen. Lake Weeks, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. From Olentangy Liberty High School, Travis Hicks, 2025 OMEA State Marching Band Finals, Superior Rating. Pratik Konchala, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Benjamin Kurian, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. From Olentangy Orange High School, Gideon Beal, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Director Cheryl Brooks, Above the Noise ICHSA quarterfinalist. Liam Elliott, 2026 OMEA All-State Band. Samuel Harjono, 2026 OMEA All-State Choir. Savia Magmudare, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Johnson Fan, 2026 OMEA All-State Choir. Nathaniel Ricker, 2026 OMEA All-State Choir. Adeline Ricker, 2026 OMEA All-State Choir. Ben Whitehead, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Daniel Whitehead, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Abigail Wyckoff, 2026 OMEA All-State Choir. Allison Ziegler, 2026 OMEA All-State Orchestra. Congratulations. On behalf of the entire board, I would like to once again commend the outstanding students, coaches, directors, and advisors recognized this evening. Your dedication and achievements are a source of great pride for our entire One Olentangy community. Beginning this evening, we'll be recognizing district retirees twice a year at a board meeting. Tonight, we're proud to recognize 19 Olentangy retirees whose collective service totals 370 years in support of our mission to facilitate maximum learning. One of our most veteran retirees joined Olentangy in 1993, at a time when 25 of our 27 schools hadn't even opened yet. Over the course of their careers, this group witnessed our district grow from 2,458 students to more than 24,000, helping shape Olentangy through nearly 3 decades of remarkable change. Our district and community has grown into a destination district for families and staff because of the multiple and national top workplace recognition, award-winning arts, and championship athletics. If you're counting, 25 team and hundreds of individual titles during your tenure. And of course, 5-star educational excellence at exceptional value that you expect and deserve. Olentangy Schools has changed so much in the past 3 or even 2 decades. This school and auditorium didn't even exist. The administrative office was still tucked away in Shanahan Middle School up until a decade ago. The students we've recognized tonight weren't even born yet. Speaking of change, can I get a quick show of hands for anyone who has seen or used a floppy disk? An overhead projector? A trapper keeper? Or was personally victimized by dysentery trying to cross the Oregon Trail? But seriously, throughout all the newness in our One Olentangy community, one thing remains unchanged: the shared commitment to our students, past, present, and future. 6 retirees are able to join us this evening, and we hope that means the others are enjoying well-deserved time with family, friends, and loved ones. On behalf of the board and our entire community, thank you for your service, your commitment, and the legacy you leave in Olentangy Schools. At this time, I'd like to welcome tonight's honorees to the stage. From Olentangy Meadows Elementary School, a former gifted intervention specialist retiring after 20 years of service to the district, Kimberly Cannon. From Olentangy High School, a former math teacher retiring after 20 years of service to the district, Elaine Humes. From Hyatt's Middle School, a former world language teacher retiring after 19 years of service to the district, Michelle Lewis. From Walnut Creek Elementary School, a former fifth grade teacher retiring after 23 years of service to the district, Sarah Sopko. From Walnut Creek Elementary School, a former fourth grade teacher retiring after 29 years of service to the district, Diane Valentino. And from Olentangy Building and Grounds Maintenance Office, CMF team, and retiring after 11 years of service to the district, Gloria Wright. Now, thank you again for joining us tonight, as well as your commitment to facilitating maximum learning in our One Olentangy community. Before we conclude this evening's student and staff recognition program, I'd like to welcome Ms. Krista Davis, our district's Chief Communications Officer, to the stage to present our final recognition of the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Wallach. Good evening, everyone. We have one last, but certainly not least, group to highlight. Before we continue with the remainder of the board meeting, we'd like to take time for a special moment of recognition. January is National School Board Recognition Month, and tonight we are proud to celebrate the dedicated members of the Olentangy Schools Board of Education. Our 5 board members give voice to decisions that shape the future of education in our shared One Olentangy community. Their leadership and guidance impact every student, every classroom, and every family we serve. Through countless hours of service, both before and during their time on the board, our members have led committees, engaged students, parents, and community members, and provided the thoughtful policy and fiscal oversight that allows Olentangy to deliver an excellent educational experience at an exceptional value year over year. Most importantly, they ensure our community always has a voice in education decision-making. While January gives us a special opportunity to say thank you, their commitment lasts all year. We are grateful for your vision, your leadership, and for continuously scaling to new heights in service to Olentangy schools and our district mission. As a small token of our appreciation, we have something for each of you, and we'd also like to invite you to join Superintendent Meyer and Treasurer Jenkins for a quick group photo. Please join us in thanking our Olentangy Schools Board of Education members. Step away, we have, for scaling new heights, we have a small mountain for you to represent the mighty mountains that you climb for us. Thank you.
You have the sound. Mr. Lester's mic on?
Hot mic, hot mic.
There we go.
There we
All
go.
right, superintendent, we'll move straight into the superintendent. We have a few people that stuck around. You guys have class? Is that
Mr. Laflamme's class?
nice?
Did you lose a bet?
That's great. Well, thank you for staying. We appreciate it. So we'll move straight into the superintendent's report.
Absolutely. We always like when we have students here
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see
Appreciate it.
business from the Board of Education. But, first and foremost, want to congratulate all of the students and staff tonight. Some of my favorite moments at board meetings, obviously, is when we can honor and recognize many of the great things that happen in the district. So tonight, we got to honor and recognize the students, staff members and coaches, as well as, new this year, as Ms. Davis, or as Dr. Wallach stated, we're going to recognize our retirees twice a year now. So obviously, this is the first one. We'll do it again at the end of the year because it's so important to our students and families, the amount of dedication and time our staff put in here in Olentangy. And then last but not least, we got to recognize, and I say it all the time, our wonderful 5 board members. And again, I'll say our 5 board members are sitting in all 5 of those seats for the right reason. And we are so grateful and appreciative of the work that you do and the service to our school district and community. So thank you. Few highlights tonight. So first, it's that time. We have the spelling bee competition. So overall, 23 of our students advance in the spelling bee competition. So 17 elementary students and 6 middle school students. So we're looking forward to see how far they go in the spelling bee competition. Also, I want to recognize Math Counts. So you can see 252 students competing in individual and team rounds of challenging math problems. The regional competition is February 7th, and all 6 Olentangy middle schools will have students competing against other Central Ohio middle schools. So looking forward to hearing how well they do at the district competition or the regional competition. Also want to highlight, and this is, I believe it's the second time that we did this, but this is part of our Bridge Ed program, and again, partnerships that we have with the University, Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center team, where they actually come on campus, and then we have students who get to see and talk to them about real-life surgery. So this 200 anatomy and AP biology students heard directly from a surgeon, nurse, surgical technologist, and CRNA. And I had to, my youngest daughter, she's a nursing major, and she always talks about the acronym CRNA, but that is a certified registered nurse, anesthetist. There we go. All right, I knew you were going to help me out with that. So the 3 surgeries this time: gallbladder removal, hernia, believe it or not, removal of a watch from a stomach. So that's the experience that they got to see. Also want to recognize all 4 of our high schools. Our high school principals were down there. I was looking there, but they went out to congratulate their students. But all 4 of our high schools have been named to the 2025 AP School Honor Roll. So again, accomplishment for all 4 of our high schools. And it's based on the percentage of students scoring 3 or higher on AP exams and the percentage of seniors taking 5 or more AP courses. So, of course, we have a strong, rich tradition with our AP curriculum, and many of our students excel in our AP courses. So as Mr. Lester stated in his president's report, just want to remind the community Wednesday, February 4th, will be the 2026 State of the Schools event at Olentangy High School. And again, the last couple of years has just been a really great evening where we get to showcase students from across the district from some of our student programs, and then obviously in the auditorium with performances from students. And then this year we will have panel presentation on elementary literacy curriculum, career pathways and readiness, and the Olentangy student experience and facilities as we continue to grow. So that's the agenda for this year's State of the Schools. I wanted to give the board a brief update on redistricting update. As you know, we have an attendance boundary committee. The attendance boundary committee met on January 6th, and really the main goal was to look immediate short-term redistricting for next year. So they were charged with looking at really the pinch point in our district right now, Indian Springs Elementary and Liberty Tree Elementary. And so they were charged with looking to see if they could move students out for long-term redistricting where the students would land and stay. They did not feel comfortable making a recommendation, so we're going to work one more year because we're going to do, moving into the 27-28 school year, elementary 18 will open in the fall of 27. We'll be able to redistrict in to elementary 18, but also look at balancing across the district some of our elementaries. So again, didn't want to move families 2 times, so want to look at that more broadly, which they'll reconvene early fall, and then have a recommendation to me by December of 26, which then I will present to the Board of Education. So that's an update on redistricting. So right now, no change for 26-27. Okay. Superintendent action items. Have 2 retirements, Jody Biggins from Cheshire Elementary, Mary Naveau from Berkshire Middle School. So these 2 individuals, over 50 years of service to Olentangy School. So again, want to thank them for their tenure and the long service and impact that they've had on students and families. Also have students for early graduation, approval of the student club from Orange High School. And again, when we bring additional clubs to the board for board action, typically this is because they want to create a student activity fund to collect money. So this is one of those examples, so I'll be asking for approval of the student club from Orange High School. And then we have 2 business management and facilities items, and again, Mr. Gordon will just give a brief discussion update. You can see the amount of close to $279,000 to Columbia Gas for the construction of the main gas service line to elementary 18. And again, this is part of the construction process when we open new schools. And then approval of the fiscal year 26 district roofing and building envelope improvements. And again, this is part of our ongoing capital plan, maintenance plan. So that's a little over 2.4 million. So Mr. Gordon will talk briefly about those items this evening. And then upcoming important dates, classified interview day, January 23rd. And again, you notice a common theme. We hire classified folks throughout the year. 2026, again, State of the Schools, February 4th, 6 o'clock at Olentangy High School. Building Our Future, Olentangy Community Bond Briefing. So that will be Thursday, January 29th. And I don't know, Mr. Jenkins, if you're going to just mention that briefly in your treasurer's report. So we wanted to make sure that we continue to communicate that on January 29th at the Olentangy administrative offices. And then our next board meeting, Thursday, February 5th. That's actually my birthday. When I looked at that, I was like, oh, that's my birthday. So we get to do a board meeting, yes. Okay. On February 5th, back at the administrative offices.
All right, any questions for Mr. Meyer? All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Jenkins, we've got the treasurer's report.
While you're walking up, so this doesn't take too much time, I'm biased, but I know Shanahan Leading Tones will be performing at the State of the Schools. They had a great turnout for the student performance for the Leading Tones keynotes and she-notes last week. So if you guys want to see an awesome Diary of a Leading Tone show, that'll be
nice
on the 4th. And it'll be free to come in.
That's awesome. All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Good evening, board members, members of the community. This evening I wanted to start with, before I got into the financial forecast, some legislative updates that have actually been implemented into the 5-year forecast. Most of them have a nominal effect on the district. We're going to explain why, but it will also provide our community with a little better explanation. I know Auditor Keitza would have put out, I believe, a social media post last week to try to clarify some of these items and what what we have to always make sure we communicate to the Olentangy community is that most of the districts in Delaware County are a little bit different than Olentangy tax-wise because of this thing called a 20 mil floor, which we're going to look at here, which all of this legislation has a slightly different twist for us because of that. So there are 4 property tax bills that were all approved essentially on December the 19th, and they will become law on roughly March the 20th. The bills themselves have various effective dates as to which tax years they apply to, not necessarily speaking to the date they become effective by law of 90 days. So we'll try to cover where those nuances are. But House Bill 129 was a bill that essentially took fixed sum levies, which I know this is kind of jargon, but fixed sum levies raise a certain amount of money each year as opposed to being for a certain millage rate. Well, those levies in the past were traditionally not counted when the state of Ohio calculated the total mills that were contributing to what's called the 20 mil floor. School districts continue to have voted tax rates decreased until you reach 20 total effective mills. And then by law, it stops. Well, in the past, emergency and substitute levies, their millage equivalent was not included in that calculation. So what districts could do is if they were at the 20 mil floor, they would pass either an emergency or substitute levy so that they stayed at the 20 mil floor. Well, loophole, I don't know what you want to call it, that was hemmed in by this bill. So now what will occur moving forward is that the millage equivalent of any emergency or substitute levy that a district has, if they're on the 20 mil floor, will be calculated in, which will, if you think about it mathematically, bring them up from 20 mils to some number above 20 mils. Why is that important? Well, as property values increase in a district, voted millage rates decrease. So with these districts now being off the floor, their residents will have what the law originally intended back in the late 1970s with House Bill 920, which is as values increase, the tax rates assessed against those values decrease. It also only allows in the future a operating expense fixed sum levy if a district is in fiscal watch or emergency or caution. So this type of levy isn't even on the table anymore unless a district is truly in a fiscal type of caution or watch. Note, Olentangy schools, I did a quick review of history. I was not able to find over the last 25 years where Olentangy ever sought a fixed sum levy. We have always sought what would be your more traditional fixed rate levies. And that should say sought to pass one, not on. But this is something that has minimal, if any, impact on the district because we currently don't even have any fixed sum levies. House Bill 186 is another bill that was passed. And what this bill will do is one that our community needs to be aware of because they will not get the tax credit that this bill creates. This bill creates a tax credit for any district that's on the 20 mil floor because remember when you get to the 20 mil floor, tax rates do not decrease any further. We all know there's been a lot of commotion across the state of Ohio, a lot of belief that property taxes are just overly burdensome. And part of that is because over 475 districts, in fact, 477 districts are currently on the 20 mil floor. Well, what does that mean? That means as values in those districts increase, since the rate is constant, that means taxes will increase by the exact same percent. So I'll repeat that. If the value goes up 20% and the rate of taxation stays constant, the taxes assessed, which is the rate times the value, mathematically has to go up 20%. This is part of the reason folks around the state, if you think about it, 477 districts, when we had record-breaking reappraisals in 2022, 23, and 24, in some of these districts, you would have had truly 25, 30, and 40% increases in school taxes. So why am I pointing all of this out? We are above the 20 mil floor. And so when our values increase, our voted tax rates are already being reduced to offset that valuation increase in any given year. So for residents of Big Walnut or Buckeye Valley or Delaware, and this is traditionally, those districts are going to see a tax credit, and it will actually be on tax bills in those districts. It will say inflationary tax credit cap. No one in Olentangy schools is going to see that same credit. And it is not because Olentangy schools doesn't care about its residents and their tax bills. It is absolutely because by being above the floor, our voted tax rates are already being reduced and offset. So in fact, if you go back to 2023, our latest reappraisal year, values increased about 34% and tax rates were reduced by about 25%. And that offset of reducing the tax rates by 25% would have created a scenario where the voted taxes that we got as a district did not go up just because values went up. Same thing in 2026, the triennial reappraisal. We're looking at about a 12% increase. I should have technically called that a triennial update. And our tax rates are going to decrease by 10.8% to offset that increase in value. One other thing that the bill does that will give our taxpayers relief is it will increase over time the tax credits for residential properties from 12.5% total to 15.38%. It's a phase out of one kind of tax called the non-business tax credit, which is a 10% flat tax credit that is applied to any residential property, regardless of whether it is owner-occupied. And all of that will shift over instead to what's called the owner-occupied tax credit, which now only stands at 2.5%. So the 10% will drop to zero, the 2.5% will go to 15.38%. So all in all residents across the state of Ohio are obviously going to see about if I do my math in my head there, a 2 point, I can't do quick math in my head when I'm standing here on the stage. So everyone will see about a 2.88%, is that right, increase in their tax credits. House Bill 335 does impact all school districts. A very tiny sliver of school district tax rates and a very tiny sliver of any political subdivision's tax rates are called inside mills. They are unvoted, and traditionally they have been fixed. There's 10 total mills that are inside, and each political subdivision gets a small sliver. Our share actually across all overlapping taxing districts where Olentangy schools' boundaries are is 5 mills. Now to give you perspective, that 5 mills only represents, as you can see, about 11.5% of the total effective tax rate of 43.288 mills. So a very small portion of the millage traditionally has stayed fixed while the rest of the millage gets adjusted. What House Bill 335 does is it says in any year where we have a reappraisal or triennial update, and if that reappraisal or triennial update is higher than the rate of inflation over that 3-year period of time, inside mills will be reduced so that the increase that the district gets is equal only to what they would have gotten for inflation. So for example, that same 12% increase that we're forecasting for tax year 2026, the GDP deflator, which is just a fancy word of saying inflation, I've got forecasted at about 8.68% over the 3-year period for 23, 24, and 25. So in order to offset that, our inside mills will actually be reduced by 3% to 4.85 mills. And so notice that 3% is roughly the delta between the 12 and the 8.68%. So for the first time ever, our forecast now has to take into account that inside mills, which have always traditionally been perfectly static, will now also decrease. And the final bill is House Bill 309. And generally what this bill does is it expands the authority of the county budget commissions to reduce tax levies. It defines unnecessary and excessive collections so that the county budget commissions have a more objective criteria to formulate any reductions in levies should they be warranted. We have an excellent relationship with our county budget commissions, an excellent relationship with Auditor Keitza, with Treasurer Ken O'Brien, and then the final member of the Budget Commission is the County Prosecuting Attorney, Melissa Schiffel. We provide them with information, and we're not anticipating any changes other than we will probably have a more active County Budget Commission that will ask us to be able to provide all the basis for why we're collecting the levies that we're collecting in order to meet our financial needs. Any questions about those 4 bills, which I believe the estimates I saw in the Columbus Dispatch said that they expect this to equate to about $3.5 billion worth of property tax relief for Ohioans.
Any questions? I do just want to thank you. I mean, these are really complicated issues, and I appreciate both the time you took here as well as Auditor Keitza, who put a lot of information out there to try to educate the community. I mean, we get a lot of questions about this stuff, so it's good to get that out there.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to do, thank you for that comment, Mr. Lester, was just to make sure that our constituents know that while we're in the same county, and you might even be talking with someone that you know at the local grocery store, they are complex issues, and the fact that Olentangy Schools is not at the 20 mil floor means that a lot of, you call up your neighbor and you might say, they're talking to you about the inflationary cap tax credit, and you're like, what? I don't see that on my tax bill here in Olentangy. What's up with that? It's because our millage rates are getting reduced because we're already above the floor. Now, the flip side of that is, why are we above the floor? Because we are a growing district. We continue to grow. We continue to add staff needed for buildings, and that is, I guess depending on where you live, if you're in a community where the schools haven't expanded rapidly, you're probably closer to the 20 mil floor. If you're in a community where schools have expanded, you've usually had to have enough levies that you're above that 20 mil floor. And that's why those tax reduction factors still apply. So now the 5-year forecast. Essentially, the presentation is going to cover the 5-year forecast at a 50,000-foot view. Then not all revenues are going to be covered. I want to cover the most material revenue sources, and the same thing on the expenditure side. We're going to cover the most material expenditures. So at a very high-level view, our forecast has essentially a day's cash picture at the bottom that shows that we ended the 24-25 school year with 137 days cash. Now remember, one of the things we did at the end of the 24-25 school year was, because of House Bill 96, we would have put money in reserve accounts that we had planned to use, that we had budgeted to use, but we did not want arbitrarily swept by the clawback provision. So those numbers would actually be better. And that cash is in other funds where we're trying to use it to offset general fund costs. But it's pretty apparent that by the 28-29 school year, we are on a trend that will have exhausted our carryover cash. And the way to see that is obviously the line that just simply says revenue surplus or deficit. We are forecasted this year to have a deficit of about $16.8 million. Now that will get better because of some moves we're going to make later in the year that I'll discuss with the board at a later time, but certainly, to kind of take the air out of the grand announcement, we have some funds from the 070 since the bond issue passed, where we won't have to buy the buses like we expected. And then we have some other expenses that we would have done pre-funding, engineering, architecture, purchase of the land, that will also be able to reimburse the general fund. So it may be that we get, $12 to $13 million of that hole plugged this year, but that's not something that will continue year over year. And you can see that trend of budget deficits is one that once you start down a budget deficit, they pick up steam. So another look just sort of shows where we're anticipating our deficit as a percentage of our revenues being. And by 2030, at a 37% deficit, that's absurd. That's not workable. Another way to think about it is either an almost 30% increase in revenue or a $151 million reduction in expenditures would be needed to right-size the budget. Truly, it's not going to be probably one or just the other. We'll have to talk about moving forward how it might be a combination of both. The largest contributors we know to revenue increase is going to be real estate, and that's because even though we're above the 20 mil floor, we do get new properties on the duplicate. Now, you'll see in just a minute that those new properties simply don't increase and cause the district's revenue to keep up with expenses. And the expenditure that has the greatest percentage change is other uses. The most material is personnel. So on the revenue side, you can see that in some of the, unfortunately, looks like some of the notes didn't transfer, so I'll tell you what they said. You can see that we don't just have revenues flatlined. Our revenues are increasing, and I believe the increase moving forward is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5% to 3%. This just shows all of our revenues put together. So historically, we are looking at a 9.04% increase over the last 5 years. The reason that that's so much higher is we had a successful operating levy in 2020. But if you go forward, the projected average annual change in revenues is about 2%. And that is taking into account that we still expect, for example, real estate to increase by $5.5 million a year. We still would expect public utility, for example, to increase by $756,000 a year. But you can see how that's being compared to the historical change. And then as an overall percent of revenue, it's just coming in at a percentage of 1.9 that does not keep up, as you'll see in further slides, with our expenses. So real estate revenue, we know that residential, agricultural taxes make up about 86% of what we bring in. The operating, and remember general fund just looks at operating mills. In case you were thinking earlier, he said 43, why all of a sudden is it 36? This is just operating general fund. So our average collection rate is 99%. Our folks in our community pay their bills on time. And the revenue changed historically at about 7%, but moving forward, it's only going to increase by about 2.3%. And so that is what I was reflecting earlier when I said about 2.5%, 3% growth in real estate. Collections, again, are being impacted by 335 for the very first time. And we mentioned in the legislative update that those 5 inside mills are going to be decreased to about 4.85 mills with the 26 pay 27 tax bills. So here is a full look at real estate revenue. Remember, our last successful operating levy was in 2020. So we've not had new operating money since the spring of 2020. And so the average decline in revenue for real estate is a feature of the fact that right now there are no new operating levies programmed into real estate. Now we'll look at state funding, which even though it's not a predominant share, it is still, we believe, the quickest way to tax relief for our community. So one of the things that the Fair School Funding Formula did was it held constant the fact that the inputs for the base cost per pupil are still being used from the 21-22 school year. So the cost of a teacher, the cost of an administrator, the cost of supplies and materials are about 5 or 6 years old. So even though it phases the formula in fully, the base components, which are base cost, are several years old. Now, we can't be completely downtrodden, I suppose. You know, we did have several supplements that were added that recognized Olentangy's unique characteristics, one of the biggest being the growth supplement. We are one of the few districts across the state that are growing, and we do have to obviously acknowledge that about $225 per student this year and almost $250 per student next year will be coming our way because of our growth. So that is something that we have to simply give recognition where it's due, that our plea as we talked, Mr. Meyer and I, to our legislators was it has to be recognized how rapidly we're growing. The other thing that the Senate did was they added just a base for everybody, $27 per pupil in 26 and $40 for fiscal year 27. And the formula uses the same preschool education payments, the same types of formula that they used in the last 2 school years. Dr. Dabrico.
So 200 and some odd dollars per student times 25,000 students roughly, that's about $6 million. That 6 1/4, 6 1/2, something in that ballpark?
Yes.
So because we're the fastest growing school district in the state of Ohio, adding 400 to 500 kids per year, achieving unbelievable academic excellence, and our money from the state is going up by the cost of 2 roundabouts. Is that right?
Well, I'll trust your math.
Going rate on a roundabout on South Section line is about $3 million. So they're getting us 2 roundabouts.
So another way of thinking about it, and I see one thing I might have left off here, is there's also a performance supplement. That's a part of it. But I'll maybe look at it a slightly different way. You can see in fiscal year 2025, our formula funding was about $1,430 per pupil.
In what year?
In fiscal year 2025, so just this past school year. With the chart that you're seeing here at 836 is just the base cost. With the performance supplement, with the growth supplement, with the flat $27 per pupil that they give us this year, we are essentially holding our nose above water. The FY26 base cost per pupil of $80.49 would have only roughly 10% coming from the state of Ohio at $836. But with all those other supplements, we're at about $1,500 per pupil, which is just a little bit above last year, basically status quo. What I will say is that private schools in the state of Ohio are already afforded nearly the same amount of money, regardless of, there's nothing special that they have to do. It's 2 types of funding called auxiliary funding and administrative services funding. Those 2 levels of funding for this school year are right around $1,430 to $1,450. So to piggyback on what you said earlier, Olentangy schools as a district, only when you add in those supplements for growth and performance, that's the only way we would even be getting per pupil what is an automatic payment to private schools in the state of Ohio.
So we're getting $27, you said?
Correct.
So that's the price of a Papa John's large with no toppings. That's what they're giving us for our academic. I just want to make sure, because it's important to connect what we're getting from the state to what stuff really costs. So just to another quick question. I want to make sure that I'm still remembering right. None of this could all disappear in the next budget, right?
And that's why I go to this slide. All of those supplements that were added on could be something that ultimately, if they say, hey, the fair school funding formula, it's in place, that's fine, you can keep it. If that was the case and they said, but no more on the supplements, our funding you would see would be right about $800 per pupil. And that is probably the lowest amount we would have ever historically gotten when you think about inflation.
So remind me again how much we lost when they quit on fair school funding?
So run your question by me
What
again.
did we lose? So if we would have fully funded fair school funding with
Gotcha.
updated cost sets in this decade,
Somewhere around $52 million.
$52 million, okay. So would it be better to get that than it would be the pizza money and the 2 roundabouts?
Had the state of Ohio fully funded the fair school funding formula and, most importantly, forwarded the cost sets to the most recently completed year, 2024, 2025, we would indeed be getting an additional $52 million in state funding across this financial cycle. And that's about 7.2 mils.
So would that let us stay off the ballot longer?
Yes. Yes, it would.
And just for consistency, and this is also, Mr. Gordon might know this, do they use old cost sets for school facilities too when they're calculating what schools get? Do they use 3, 4, 5-year-old cost sets, or do they use more updated?
They update them. Yeah.
And I guess to further elaborate your point, with all these supplements, we're getting about $1,400, $1,500. Private schools automatically get about $1,500. And how much do schools get that accept vouchers from charter schools, things like that? How much is that per student that they get?
So a K-8 Ed Choice voucher is somewhere around $6,400, $6,500 per kid. And a 9-12 Ed Choice voucher is over $8,000. About $8,500, I think. So
The state gives.
So the money doesn't follow the kid?
the money does, and so that's the slight difference, is auxiliary and administrative funding gets paid directly to the private school. But a voucher gets paid to the parent to offset tuition costs at a private school.
Except if they go to Olentangy, it doesn't come with that.
And if that same child were to leave private school XYZ and re-enroll back in Olentangy schools, we're getting about $1,500 for that same pupil. And again, the $836 up there is what we would get base cost. Then the rest of the supplements added to that round out to about $1,500.
Which all of this is just, I realize that when we add in pizza and roundabouts and numbers, it's a little hard to follow. But the net result of all of this is that it's just more and more and more on the local community to pay for the schools. And that's the real challenge. And that's why we've been active in trying to speak to this, because as we've talked to people on the bond trail or on the levy trail to explain all this, this shows in very clear detail where that breakdown is, right? It's not that we're buying, gold-plated, anything, or it's that we're seeing a systematic shift away from the state's responsibility to the local responsibility, and that's a choice, right? That's a choice that legislators make, that the governor makes, and it's a choice that the community has to keep in mind as they're working through all that.
And when a couple slides back, it says 85% of the local tax comes from residential agricultural, our residents really feel it, as opposed to someone that might have a more balanced commercial and residential tax base.
Yeah, I think I saw that before they did the supplements, that by using the 2022 cost sets, if you take every school in the state of Ohio and you just go macro to the whole state funding formula, you still get a base cost and you still get the state share versus the local share. Over this biennium, I believe the state share was going to fall as low as 33% aggregate. So the state funding formula basically starts off with what they say it costs to educate a child. And that number is, as you can see on the screen, about 8049. Well, the average cost per the CUP report to educate a child in the state of Ohio is already $17,500. Well, you know, we're not going to try to delude ourselves. There's no way the state can actually, without cutting every program that they do, I get it, say that they're going to offer $17,000 per child. But they come up with a cost to educate of, you know, $8,100. Then they further, based on what they believe the capacity of that local district is, say that their share of that $8,100 is lower the wealthier a school district is deemed to be by the formula. We are being pushed to the statutory minimum of the state will always pay at least 10% of the base cost. And that's exactly where we've been pushed to. But for the supplements, that's what our funding would be.
So, Mr. Lester, you brought up the legislators and the governor. How did our local, let me just ask yes or no, that'd be easier. On the 4 bills that you suggested that cut school funding, did our local legislators, did they disagree or did they all support it? Those 4?
The 4 bills that were passed, I'm without memorizing the voting record, I'm absolutely certain that our local representatives and our senator would have approved them all and voted yes.
Thank you.
So the growth that we see in our revenue for state funding is going to be tied almost exactly to the same pace of growth for our students. That is why you see just a slight increase, but that slight increase in funding is only going to be tied to our growth. And the other thing I've assumed in 28, 29, and 30, which could change, is that whether it's with supplements or a change to the formula, our per pupil funding is going to stay at the $1,500 to $1,550. If that changes and we go back to the 10% share, this slide would change dramatically with what we get from the state of Ohio. So on the expense side, our expenses, as you can see, the aggregate growth over time, and it is outpacing, unfortunately, our revenue because of our growth and how many new staff members that have to be hired because of how many kids we get and the buildings that we have to put up. It's a really good problem to have a highly successful school district, but it's also a challenge when we look at how we plan for all of that growth. So our biggest material areas of growth, as you can see, will be in salaries and benefits. And that's just a direct reflection of the fact that you have to add staff. Traditionally, the historic average annual change has been about 11.85%. The forecast is calling for 6.5 or 6.05%. Now, don't be fooled about, well, why in the world was it 11.85%? Everyone remember what we did at the end of last year. We would have transferred $50 million. That is an other use. And so that average on other use that you see of 9.7 is basically that 50 million kind of split up over 4 or 5 years, and then there's some other things in it. So that is an anomaly, and that's why you have that negative 10 million, is we're not planning on that big of a transfer moving forward. Suffice it to say, without that $50 million one-time transfer, our salaries and benefits would absolutely be our area of highest growth. So they're going to, as noted, increase by about $18.3 million per year, and that is because of staffing growth due to negotiations, salary indices, and just raw numbers of people that we have to add. Benefits are right behind it at about $7.9 million a year moving forward. Again, this includes staffing growth and any increases in salary-driven fringes as well as healthcare costs. We have in this forecast the assumptions for our labor agreements, which we know are set through 2027, 2028. Then in the 2 out years, we have to forecast and anticipate, and right now I have those values at 2.5% for wage increases that would be negotiated. And then we have a number that basically looks at, on a given year, even without a negotiated wage increase, our indices increase salaries. For example, for a certified teacher, on aggregate about 2.7%, and for classified staff about 2.9. NA for administrative staff is not an error. The administrative staff does not have a step or index salary schedule. So here would be the look at our growth. You have kind of a two-part graph that the left vertical axis is the number of staff, and it goes with the bar charts, and they're a cumulative total. And the right vertical axis that goes with the line is student growth. And so you can plot out how over the years we will be looking at the growth in certified staff, classified staff, and administrative staff to keep up with a K-12 enrollment, and this is just K-12, of 23,611 students that will grow to almost 28,000 students by fiscal 31. So the question that we are going to have to wrangle with as a leadership team is when we go back on the ballot, not if. When we were on the campaign trail, we got essentially a question of, are you guys going to build these new buildings and then you're not going to be able to open them because you can't afford it? And our answer was, we will open these buildings. They're in the forecast, and there's no way we would construct brand new buildings just to let them sit empty. That being said, we know as a district, we will need additional operating dollars to operate the district as a whole when the district as a whole is growing the way that it is. So you can see I have a green rectangle kind of around the waters that we're getting ready to go into when it comes to our deficits, and then a red rectangle around those, obviously, as it shows the value of what's in the chart up above. And here's another way of looking at it. Days cash on hand for fiscal year 2027 and 2028. So if I had to say when would the district simply have to look at an operating levy, it would have to be in calendar year 2027 or calendar year 2028. So we know that that is a pretty much a known time frame. There'll be some fluctuation in the forecast, but ultimately my best assessment of when we're going to have to go back on the ballot for operations, it's going to almost have to be in calendar year 27, calendar year 28 at the very latest.
Which is 7 or 8 years since our last one.
That's correct.
You know, I think only Mr. O'Brien was on the board at that time. But when that levy was being presented, it was 3 to 5 years, you know, of operating at that time. It wasn't presented as this is going to cover us for the next 10 years. And so we've been able to stretch this, you know, for a pretty significant period of time. But it's just a fact of life when things are growing the way they are that the costs are going up.
That's right. So this was just a very high level view. Certainly we have a lot of discussion. The next financial forecast will be submitted in August. We've talked as a DLT team about making sure that between now and August that we really hone and fine tune our plan and how we're going to go about communicating with the community. But I think the communication strategy is simply going to be that we know that an operating issue, and we'll have to make that decision obviously with the board as a team, is on the horizon for calendar year 27 or 28.
And if that were to come to be, it could be mitigated by the state budget funding the state schools more.
That is correct. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any scenario where we stay off the ballot, but it could certainly be for a lot less mills. Yep. Yeah, our task, and it'll be next spring of 27, we'll be working with our legislators to recognize as much as they can. I get it. You know, they're trying to feed a lot of mouths with the state budget. But ultimately, that is a very astute point, Ms. Schreiber. Yes, we still believe that is one of the easiest methods for tax relief for Olentangy schools.
Well, and you said legislators, but it's the governor's budget as well, so we'll have a new governor, so whomever is in that seat.
Yep, the governor certainly leads with the executive budget. Yep.
So, I mean, more than anything else, it's, you know, because this has a direct impact on people in the community, these are questions people should be asking as part of the election cycle this year, right? We have legislators, we have governor candidates that are on the ballot. These are good questions to ask and sort of understand what people's plans are, how they would approach these things, because it makes a real difference to people's pocketbooks.
Yes.
If people still carry pocketbooks. So. Okay, any other questions? I know Libby does. But,
So then the only other things are the action items, the approval of the January 8th meeting minutes. There is a resolution or an acknowledgement. Remember, we talked about working with the county budget commissions. Each year they have every political subdivision agree that, yep, the tax rates and amounts that it will raise, we agree. And so that is one of the exhibits that's in the treasurer's agenda. And then finally, we are hopefully very transparent. Hopefully everyone in the community realizes that there's nothing that we do financially that we're not willing to share. Our annual comprehensive financial report is complete. That's about 230 pages of, I doubt that everyone is going to read it all. So what we do instead is create also a popular annual financial report, which is the 230 pages distilled to about 11 pages of the most critical material, and it actually gets mailed to every resident in the district. We've had questions before in the past, you know, because our communications department does just a fantastic job. People leap to the conclusion that, you know, this is just an incredibly expensive document. Last year I did the calculations because of the bulk printing, because of the way, you know, we produce it and send it out. It's about 45 cents per household to educate our community about one of the largest entities that their tax dollars go to. I call that an exceptional bargain.
all right, thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
And I don't have any public participation forms.
All right, good. Then we will move straight into our discussion item, which is Mr. Gordon talking about some of the building and facilities updates. Joe.
Good evening. Two items tonight on the agenda to talk about. The first is the Columbia Gas, and that's for extending the gas line to our site. This happens a lot with our utilities, and we're the first ones there, such as we are at what's surrounding vacant farmland, just like we were here at Berlin when we built this. We had a lot of roadway and utility improvements to make when we opened the high school. For this building and for high school 5, we'll be in the same boat. We did budget for off-site improvements, about $1 million for the elementary building, knowing we had quite a few off-site utilities. Remember, we were able to offset some of those costs with our agreement to lease the land to Delco for the water tower. So they took a significant cost off the table for us for extending the water lines. But we will have additional utilities there for our fiber connectivity, as well as sanitary improvements, which we'll probably do as a second GMP to the elementary project. So we will continue to bring these construction items to the board. Next meeting, we expect to approve the contract for the elementaries. The other item, as Mr. Meyer mentioned, is just our annual roofing bid. I shared and I gave the capital planning update earlier in the year, or I'm sorry, end of last year, that we actually had a smaller roofing bid last year, carried some money forward, so that's why this bid, where it's been about 1.2, 1.3 million in the last several years, this one's higher because we carried money forward from last year and had a bigger bid. So this was money that was budgeted and is in line with what we expected.
And roofing is not one of those things that anyone does just for fun, but we have buildings that are getting older. I mean, that's just sort of what happens when you have a growth boom over time. So, yeah.
Yeah, these are one of those things that will continue to increase. I always mention that we built 15 buildings in that 11-year period between 2000, 2010, 2011, so we're hitting those costs now.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to the treasurer consent action items. So, Mr. Jenkins, if you want to present those items.
Board members, tonight I have 3 items that I'm presenting and asking to be approved as a consent action item by one single motion and vote. Item A would be the minutes from January 8th. Item B, the approval of the 2025 rates and amounts from the County Budget Commission. Item C, approval of the annual comprehensive financial report and popular annual financial report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. And again, all of those I'm asking for one single action and vote unless someone would like to pull an item out and discuss it separately.
Would anyone like to pull any of those out separately? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them as a single slate of consent action items?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The only thing I'll note is just these, the PAFR in particular will be mailed out, but you can access this in our board minutes, so you get a preview of it. So that's great.
Yep.
All right.
I'm sure people will be running to the
people will be running to
website.
it. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
It's all on the website.
Any discuss? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Dr. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Meyer, please go to the superintendent consent action.
Thank you,
items.
Mr. Lester. Board members, I recommend approval of the following superintendent consent action items A through H: specific human resource items administrative, specific human resource items certified, specific human resource items classified, D, specific human resource items classified substitutes, E, specific human resource items supplementals, F, recommend approval of students for early graduation, G, recommend approval of student club, and again, that's Orange High School, the Learner Agency Club, H, business management and facility items that were just discussed by Mr. Gordon, the construction of the main gas service line to Elementary 18, and then fiscal year 26 district roofing and building envelope improvement work. I'm asking you to approve these items by one single action and vote unless you'd like to discuss any of these items separately.
Would anyone like to discuss any of these separately? All right, hearing no interest, can I have a motion to approve them as a single slate of consent action items?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico,
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, Mr. Jenkins.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico,
Yes.
Dr. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
All right.